fresh off the heels of the 2019 ADCC. I'm still here in California, trying to digest what just happened on the weekend with a special guest, one of the well-known guys in the Jiu-Jitsu and grappling and MMA community, and a person that I call an innovative person in the history of grappling. Let's take a look.
The Jiu-Jitsu Dojo is the ultimate training ground for life. Jiu-Jitsu will accelerate the evolution of your being, your consciousness, your soul. Through this amazing art, you will prove to yourself that you can master anything you set your mind to.
Happy birthday, Eddie Bravo!
I leave for Brazil tomorrow.
Are you the Fear Factor guy?
I'm like 6 pounds over. Time to sweat it out.
Just imagine someone that has no idea how different your game is.
I'll tell you what this weekend was, man. It was a culmination point where all your hard work comes to like one great moment in time. You showed that you're a fucking champion, guy who goes against convention. You created your own shit and figured interesting ways to get around problems in jiu-jitsu. And shows you that great things are possible if you work hard, if you dedicate yourself, and you use your creativity, and you push through. Your own human potential just goes up.
My 10th Planet Association has grown rapidly to over 70 academies worldwide, and their curriculums are all synced to 10th Planet headquarters located in downtown Los Angeles. I'm Eddie Bravo. I hope to see you on the mats.
Okay, excellent video. I believe you liked it too, Eddie. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I love that commercial. Bobby Razak, he directed it. I was shocked at how good it came out. I wish I would have went back and had a chance to redo the voiceovers, though. I wasn't happy with those.
No, it was good. It was good. Bobby also joins me. Bobby Razak, Director Extraordinaire, Combat Sports Director Extraordinaire. He was also there at the ADCC filming, and he made sure that everyone knew the make of the camera he was filming with. He kept putting that stuff all over the internet, man.
Yeah, we used the new Sony Venice. It's an amazing camera. It's going to go head-to-head with the Arri Alexa, the Alexa LF. I mean, it's a stunning camera.
So the red's no good? That's old school? Old school?
Pretty old school, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, this Venice, Sony Venice, is the new color science, the color space. It's actually going head-to-head with the Alexa. It's a stunning camera. I don't think anything has been filmed in terms of combat sports with this particular camera, and the color science blew my mind, and it's 6K as well.
What is it? What makes it better? It just it captures the light in a different way, or?
Well, the sensor is very sensitive in terms of fluctuating light conditions. It's 6K as well, gives you a larger resolution to push in, centralized scan, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But the color science that Sony created is mind blowing. It captures an amazing amount of pixelation with the colors and the way the sensor looks in terms of very filmic, cinematic. It's really amazing.
Has a fight ever been filmed?
No, it just came out, this camera. So no, nothing's been filmed in terms of combat sports. I'm expecting to hear a phone call from Sony, but alas, we're not going to be showing any. We're saving it for our movie, an archive. We have a very large archive of some of the greatest jiu-jitsu athletes and tournaments. We filmed everything, and so it's under the boss's archive now, Mo.
We never know. We might, something might happen and we might end up getting it out, right?
Never know.
Okay, before we open up on this crazy weekend and the upsets and a lot of things going on, I don't know if you remember, but I met you a while back. I think
we did privates.
Exactly. Right? I did one private with you. I also have a picture of this private lesson. And I still remember, believe it or not, I don't remember many things when it comes to privates because I'm not consistently doing jiu-jitsu, but I still remember what you taught me that day. The guard, the lockdown. Yeah, the lockdown, the rubber guard. These, I just kept hammering those two together with you in that. It wasn't even at 10th Planet at the time. You were working out of is it Legends?
Legends.
Legends.
Yeah, that was at the La Brea Legends. I remember, because when he said Mo wants to do podcasts, I thought he meant Mo Jassim.
Yeah.
So I hit him up, and he's like, I don't do no goddamn podcast.
He doesn't even.
I go, no. I go, I guess Bobby's on mushrooms or something.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah. No, it was good times, man.
Then I go, oh, that's right. I remember now.
Legends was pretty trippy. I think what's his face was there too. Who's that guy who went a little crazy? The fighter. He got into a fight with the Diaz brothers and the Strike Force once. Jake Shields was fighting.
KJ Noons?
No, another guy.
That's a guy.
He lost his mind a little bit in the Ariel Hawani show a few times.
Mayhem Miller?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Mayhem Miller was down there too. That was a pretty interesting place back in the time. Kind of little incubations for MMA there too as well. I remember Legends Libre.
Yeah. Mayhem, he pretty much introduced or pushed it through, finally pushed through Darce's for 10th Planet, because back at the ADCC qualifiers in 2002, that were in San Diego, that's the one that I won. Mark Lehman, who is a jiu-jitsu black belt, mental genius, you know what I mean? He's an encyclopedia when it comes to jiu-jitsu. We're up in his, and we're always exchanging philosophies and techniques and stuff. And he goes, dude, are you ready for that? Are you ready to defend the Darce? That's huge. I'm like, what is that? He goes, it's huge at Henzo's. I'm like, what the hell is it? So he goes, dude, it's gonna mess up your half guard game. I go, really? And right there on the floor in his hotel room, I got him in double underhooks lockdown, and he showed me it. I'm like, oh, can we cuss?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay.
Use your phone, check your phone, just chill. Yeah,
I don't know if it's illegal in Abu Dhabi.
Off with his head.
We'll put an E next to the podcast.
So I got him in double underhooks, and I squeezed super tight. And I remember asking him, I'm like, does it work if I squeeze super as hard as I can in double underhooks? And it didn't. So that's what right there. I'm like, okay, I really don't have to worry about it too much. I just need to remember, if I have double underhooks, to squeeze super, super tight so he can't get that choking. So that's all I thought about. And one of Henzo's guys, the guy I met in the finals of that tournament, Alan Teo, he was trying to put a Darce on me too. And I kind of forgot about it a little bit. 10th Planet wasn't even a thought at that point. This was 2002, then now it's 2003. That was October of 2002, and ADCC 2003 in Sao Paulo wasn't until May of 2003. So there was like 6-7 months between both tournaments. So then after Abu Dhabi's right when I opened up 10th Planet, like in June, right away. First Thursday in June, 18 people showed up.
So yeah, garage first though. Was it Legends straight away or was it garage?
Well, I was teaching, a couple people out of my patio at my house, you know what I mean? But patio. I didn't have a garage. It's kind of like a
garage.
Bought mats but then I opened up 10th Planet in June, and I would say within a year, Mayhem Miller came down a bomb squad, and he just darced everybody.
Wow.
Because he has long-ass arms, too.
He does, yeah.
He has really long-ass arms. And he's a Mark Lehman disciple.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were really tight for a while. So Mark Lehman, he said Mark Lehman, he was just darcing all my students. And then from that point on, I thought, damn, that's that move, man, that Mark Lehman showed me about a year ago. I'm like, fuck. So we went balls deep with the Darce and made that a huge part of the system as well.
It's amazing. So I didn't know that he opened 10th Planet like a few months off your ADCC.
It wasn't even a few months. It was 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, you had to.
Yeah.
No.
Momentum was there.
Oh, well, I had to because I was in a horrible position at my current job. I was writing comedy for the Man Show at Comedy Central, and you saw a lot of that footage.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. It was horrible. It was a nightmare. I had just started working for Comedy Central. Joe Rogan, he got me the job. When him and Doug Stanhope took over for Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, Comedy Central wanted to keep the show going after they left, and they offered it to Joe. And me and Joe were already writing comedy sketches. We had like 30 of them. We were about to pitch a sketch comedy show, like Dave Chappelle. We were going to do it. We had all these sketches ready to go. And so when they offered Joe the job, he was like right in the middle of Fear Factor. So he was already a huge star. Yeah. Fear Factor's going on. But that was something that you know, he's an amazing comedian, and it was something that we wanted to do. So, because I had dabbled in stand-up comedy, and then I realized, man, you got to put a lot of work into it. You got to put a lot of public speaking experience to pull off going on stage. You got to be a really good public speaker, and you got to practice a lot. That's why most comedians,
like Brendan Schwab,
yeah, most comedians you got to go up every day for the practice, for the workout. You're working out. You can't just go up on stage and just kill. That takes a lot of work. It's just like jiu-jitsu. And once I realized that, because, you know, I thought, you know, I would make people laugh and tell some stupid jokes or stories, and Joe would laugh, and Joe said, dude, you got to go up on stage and tell that story. You got to go up on stage. And I was always a huge stand-up comedy fan, massive. Like, the only thing I would tape growing up was boxing and stand-up comedy. That's it. And I was into music. But my hobbies were, you know, taping, you know, Def Jam, anything comedy I taped, and anything boxing I taped. Anything. I watched all that stuff. Tuesday Night Boxing, that's all my that's all that was on my tapes. You know, taping it In Living Color, which was you know, a sketch comedy show. I had every episode on an 8-hour VHS set without Martin, all that stuff. And so when Joe kept telling me, and Joey Diaz, like in 2001, he goes, dude, you could do that on stage. I'm like, you think I could pull this off? Like, then I started writing a little comedy. Then when I started doing it, I realized, shit, I suck. Because you go up there and you're under pressure. It isn't like telling your stories in front of your friends where you think you're funny. Now you're on stage, and these motherfuckers, they'll smell blood the second you crack on stage, and you'll die a horrible death on stage. It sucks. You know, because doing stand-up, you're basically saying, you know, you're kind of being arrogant and conceited. If you say, like, you're a comedian, you better be fucking funny, because you're basically bragging about yourself. Like, oh, I'm a comedian. Like, oh, you think you're just going to get up on stage and make people laugh and entertain them? It's really arrogant to say that. I still have trouble calling myself a comedian. I still don't do that. You go on my Instagram, there's nothing that says comedian or anything.
Yeah, you're multi-talented, though. I remember when you gave me a book, aside from the Rubber Guard book, I think you gave me something like, was it a rock band you were in, or like the music?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I never stopped making music. Stopped making music right now. And music has never stopped. But I realized after going up on stage maybe 10 times, I realized I don't have the time to, you know, go out every night like a real comedian's supposed to do, and actually get your public speaking experience together. Because you don't even have to be funny to be a successful comedian. All you have to be is confident and articulate, and you could pull it off. You could fake it and steal a couple jokes here and there. You just have to be really, really confident and very well spoken. And that takes a lot of practice. So I didn't have time. I was like doing jiu-jitsu, and I was still pursuing a career in music. So I'm like, I can't do fucking 3 things. So what I decided to do is, okay, I can't do the stand-up comedy because I just don't have the time to go up every night. I just can't do it. And it's horrible. I wasn't doing that good. Like, you know, I would be funny like with Joe, but then when I get on stage, I'd fall apart. So I decided, you know what? Let's just, because we had chemistry, me and Joe, when it comes to comedy. Like, when it came to sketches, I would be the one who would come up with an idea for a sketch, and then Joe, I would just say, here's the idea. I'd give him like a little premise, and he would just go off and make it funny. So we were a great team that way. I would just say, what about this and this? What about a commercial parody like this? And then he would just make it so funny. And so he called me the idea guy. So when he got offered that job at Comedy Central, he said, I'm going to bring in, you know, a couple comedians. And they said, okay. And he said, I will only do this show, only step down and do a cable show, because he's in the middle of Fear Factor, under certain conditions. I have all the power. I have the power to hire who I'm going to work with. That's why Doug Stanhope got hired, because Joe was the one who picked him. They wanted to throw in, I think, Dane Cook. And Joe's like, I want Doug Stanhope. So they listened to him. They go, and then he had dinners with the executive producer. Said, "This is what I want." He goes, "I don't need this," but it just so happens that me and my buddy are writing a bunch of sketches, and we were going to pitch a sketch comedy show anyway. So this is perfect. We could do our sketches here, and they go, "Oh yeah." Because I want to be able to hire. I want to pick the head writer. So in that show, there's one head writer and 9 writers under him, right? So Joe said, "I want green light power on the sketches. I want to be able to veto any sketches that I don't like." And they were just like, yeah. So he goes out with a couple head writers. He picks a guy named Tom, picks him, and he was like, "Okay, let's do this." They hired Doug Stanhope. They hired the head writer that he approved. He didn't know the guy, but he would just said, "This is one of the guys," and he hung out with them, had dinner, and he said, "Okay, I like this guy." And he gave him a list of the writers he wanted. He wanted to hire Joe. Joe said, "Here's his list." Matty Kirsch, is a friend of his who's a comedian. Chris McGuire, another friend of his who they both had writing experience, like on TV shows and stuff, and then me. So they gave him everything he wanted except me. They go, "This guy doesn't have any experience. We're not hiring this guy." And Joe fucking blew up and made them hire me. He fucking
That's a good friend, man.
True friend, man.
He made them hire me. But it sucked because the first day of work, I had been DJing at a strip club for about 10 years.
Oh, I remember that.
And
In the Valley.
I was making some cash every night,
That's
and I was doing
right.
great.
And you was always with different strippers too, I remember.
Yeah. Getting laid was no problem. Cash was always coming in. Easy job. I had the perfect schedule. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. I had Friday through Monday off every goddamn weekend. It was fucking awesome, dude. It was awesome.
And that was in the Valley, right? That's true.
I worked in the Valley. There was one in the Valley. And then the owners had another club by the airport, Bear Elegance. I worked there too.
So you had to leave that job because you're doing.
So I quit that. So I was basically, I'm gonna blow up. We're gonna blow this show up. We're gonna parlay it into a movie career. We're gonna blow it up like the Wayans brothers. Oh yeah, and for me, it was always about the music. So I just thought, okay, I'll do this comedy thing. I'm kind of getting just like unexpectedly thrust into it, and so let's do this. And then we'll make movies, and then I'll put my music in the movies, and that's how it'll work. I go, that's how my music's going to get through through comedy. That was the plan. But after the first 5 minutes of my first day on the set, man, I realized it was a big mistake because they treated me like shit. They go, okay, we'll hire him. Joe's fucking making a big deal out of it. We'll hire him. But
in what way they're making you feel shit? Like how?
They said, okay, all these sketches that we had all our sketches pinned up. They go, forget about all these sketches. These sketches are no good. We need new sketches. Like, what are you talking about? We have 30 goddamn sketches ready to go. And they're like, nah, we ain't gonna do that. So, and they basically just ignored me.
Stepchild.
Yeah.
This is.
Yeah. So then I realized real quick what a big mistake this was, and reality started to set in. I thought, man, okay, this show's gonna get fucking canceled, and I'm gonna be unemployed. What the fuck did I do? What the fuck? Because I couldn't go back to the strip club because once you leave, and I left like, fuck you guys, you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm blowing up, bitch. And seriously, the first 5 minutes I realized I made a big mistake. It was horrible. So after that first day of just, they put me in a cubicle and they said, write a sketch. It was like I was in school. And the way we wrote the sketches that we had, it was like, there was no pressure. It was
Chill,
organic.
relax,
And we were just chilling, hanging out, driving. We'd be at like a mall. And I go, dude, what about a sketch like this? And then we'd be laughing, so zero stress. So it wasn't like that first day. It was a nightmare. I started to panic. And Joe felt it too. Because they're like, oh shit, they tricked me. They made me sign the goddamn contract. And it turns out the head writer in his contract negotiations, which Joe had nothing to do with, he just didn't even bother worrying about his contract and the details of his contract. But it turns out that in his contract, that head writer got a executive producer point. So that immediately put him over Joe. He had more power than Joe because he had an executive producer point that Joe just took their word for it, and they're scumbags, Comedy Central, and they totally. He didn't have veto power on the sketches. The head writer did. He had more power. He couldn't put any sketch he wanted on. They said, no, none of your sketches. Dude, they fucked us. So after that first day, we realized this shit, and Joe sat them all down at the end of the day, and the executive producer's there, Joe goes, this is not how we write. We can't write like, this is like we're fucking in detention trying to write sketches. We are going to work at home. We're going to write at home. And they say, go for it. Get the fuck out of my face. Just show up for when we shoot. There was a whole different attitude.
Wow, really?
Whole different attitude. So from that point on, I didn't have to go to work. All I had to do was come up with a sketch every day and email it in, and then show up for the tapings, which they totally ignored me during the tapings too. You know what I mean? So, so every day I wrote a sketch, and every day they declined it. The one sketch that I did write, and they did it. They took two of my ideas. One of them was a sketch on it was Dr. Phil as a cokehead womanizer, at a strip club type sketch.
Oh, wow.
And what they
got
did,
the look.
yeah, what they did, what Dr. Phil is?
Yeah, of course.
what they did with it, which was awesome too, is they made it like a punk type sketch where they took a Dr. Phil impersonator and fake like Dr. Phil was having a book signing at a book. So there was like a long line of people waiting to get their book signed by Dr. Phil. Meanwhile, it wasn't him. It was an impersonator. So I'm sure some people, when they got up to the front of the line, said, this ain't fucking Dr. Phil. I'm sure there was that. But there was a lot of people. They had no idea. They thought it was really Dr. Phil. So he'd sit down and he'd sign. As he's like signing shit, he'll say, you know where I can get some Coke, get an 8-ball? And the women are like, huh? So I got a hotel. Let's go hang out and party. And they'd be like, okay. It was like, it was awesome. It was awesome. So he's basically hitting on the girls or the women, trying to get Coke and trying to get them in his hotel. It was hilarious. And that was a 2-parter. So that was my idea. And then another one was, I don't know why, but I always lean towards commercial parodies. You know what I mean? And a commercial parody would be something where they're trying to sell a product that's the most ridiculous thing. It's not practical. It's not something that anybody would use. Otherwise, it wouldn't be funny. But they're selling it like they're trying to sell it like it's the whole commercial. So that's what I did. I did a bunch of those, and one was the one they used. It was called the fart tube. And it was basically saying, which is useless, right? That's what a commercial parody is useless, a fart tube, which is, it starts off by something like, did you know that when you fart, by the time it reaches your nose, 70% of the gases are already evaporated into the air. So you're not getting like a good whiff of your own fart. So now with the fart tube, you put a tube in your ass and it comes up, and it comes up over your ears and it comes into your nose. So now you could smell 100% of your fart. So it was something like that. Something useless.
I want to buy that. Where can I buy Eddie? Where can I buy that from?
When I got the idea, just looking at like some movie or something, or someone in a hospital, and they got like the things and like the tubes in their nose to help them breathe. You know what I mean? So it came from that.
Let me ask you a question. I'm kind of gonna move away from this, but you mentioned that you were kind of treated bad by Comedy Central and corporate comedic world, right?
Yes.
Did you feel the same way with the jiu-jitsu community when you kind of deviated from the traditional? I know you're a Jean Jacques black belt, but you kind of deviated, and a lot of Brazilians I knew at the time were like, whenever I mention your name, they're like, like they don't believe in that progressive jiu-jitsu built for street fighting or MMA or whatever. Did you feel at any time you were being under attack, same way you were?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
can you tell me about
time. Well, let me get through Comedy Central first. So I got to a point where sometimes tensions heated between me and Joe too, because sometimes we'd get together at his house, nice comfortable setting, just like we asked, and they said just leave. They didn't even care if he was there. You know what I mean? They just, as long as you're there for the taping, we'll have the sketches. You know, and I remember one time writing sketches with Joe in his big ass theater room in his big ass house, and we felt there was some tension. Like we're like, man, like I felt like I made a mistake. I should have stayed at the strip club. He was like under pressure now because he realized that they lied to him and they totally fucked him. And
not a guy to lie to.
So now we're trying to write new sketches, and I remember we're like just sitting there for a couple hours and nothing's happening. And inside, I felt like I was screaming inside. Like I felt like there was something inside. Like I would never commit suicide, never. But I understood how weak people who lose their jobs. Like I'm like, that's why they do it. I get it now.
Wow, really?
You know what I mean?
Wow.
I get it. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be 33. I'm gonna have nothing. I'm gonna be unemployed. Where the fuck am I gonna work? That's what I thought. And I was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And the only light in my life at that point was that I had ADCC 2003 coming up. I had a free trip to Brazil. I didn't think I was going to beat anybody or anything. I'm like a brown belt. I felt like I got lucky. I won the trials. I'm like, shit, I didn't expect that. And now at least I get a free trip to Brazil. Joe was coming with me. That was in the contract, because when Joe signed the contract, he said, in May, we're taking off for 4 days to Brazil, you know, because because Eddie's going to do a big world championship tournament. And they're like, okay, say a week. They didn't give a shit. So the cool thing about that was, like, Joe knew that how depressed I was. When I did 2003, that's the most depressed I've ever been. I was super depressed. Didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I'm like, for sure, best case scenario, they don't fire me, and the show gonna get canceled. The sketches that were greenlighting were horrible sketches. Couple of them were all right.
Even the ones that you were creating, you felt weren't right too, or?
Well, they only used 2. And there was they had a whole bunch of them, but
there
was like 9 writers total, and the head writer brought in all his buddies, and he was greenlighting his buddies' sketches.
Not your stuff.
Yeah. The head writer greenlights it, and they weren't greenlighting. They greenlit 2 of mine. That's it. And I wrote a sketch every day. Man, it's not that easy coming up with a sketch every day. I wrote one on it was a parody on sitcom. You know, Family Matters.
Yeah.
You ever see? They show Family Matters?
The guy
with Urkel.
Urkel, the guy with the
Family Matters.
pulls his pants all over.
That wasn't a big English show.
So I came up with
really.
I came up with a sketch called Manson Family Matters,
Oh.
where it was like part Family Matters, but part Charles Manson's family, like his family. Like Urkel was still in it, but Charles Manson was the dad, and then Marilyn Manson was the mother, and that was one of those sketches where it seemed like I could only create if I was high on cannabis. It seemed like, now I feel like for sure it's like a steroid for the imagination, sure, but without it, I feel like I could still come up with stuff, and I do now for my comedy now. But back then I felt like there's no way I could come up with good comedy unless I'm stoned. And
by the way, sorry to ask, but is that the case with most comedians? They can't go on stage without having a drink or
everyone's different. Everyone's different. I would say most guys go up maybe with a drink or 2, a little shot. I do.
You perform better with Coke, for sure.
Some people do that too.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Some people do that too. I don't. I'm not a Coke guy.
A lot of musicians do.
Weed is better for creativity, but it's not good for remembering structure. So when I go up on stage, I don't smoke weed anymore because it's easier to remember the act. And I digress when I get stoned and I'm on stage. I digress. I'm like, I don't even get to the fucking.
But they say Coke makes you more hyper alert, though, right? The Coke.
Well, Coke is like
that's more
like
musicians,
drinking
though, right?
5
like
monsters
rockers and stuff like that.
Yeah, they
just
can
energy.
tend to focus. Yeah.
But anyway, so we went to Brazil, and Joe's like, we're going to go first class, man, because, when you win the trials, you get an economy ticket. So Joe said, fuck that. We're going first class. So first class was sold out to Brazil, but business class wasn't. And first class was $9,000 a ticket. Business class was $7,500. Right.
2003.
Yeah, and Joe got 2 business class tickets, and we went. So it was like my final. This is like, I don't know what I'm gonna do after this. Let's just enjoy this shit. So we went, and I tapped out Royler Gracie, and I came back, and before I went, there was a dirty, dingy kickboxing school, or a boxing gym on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Oh yeah,
the Bomb Squad.
Yeah.
They offered a few months before they had offered me a job there to teach jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, dude, no way is anybody gonna learn jiu-jitsu from me. So I turned it down. I'm like, we got legends all over the place. Hickson over here, Jean Jacques over here. People want to learn from a Brazilian, but no one's gonna want to learn from a brown belt Mexican guy. You know what I mean? So I turned them down. Like, it's gonna be I'm going to be embarrassed. You're not going to make any money. This is going to be a big waste of time. No one's going to show up. So I turned it down. But after that, and I came back, I went back to that gym, and I asked him, is that job still available? And he said, yeah. And I called up Joe, and I'm like, Joe, I know you moved mountains to get me in, but I can't do this no more, man. I'd rather be broke and teach jiu-jitsu and be my own boss. That's what and I wasn't planning on teaching jiu-jitsu at all. I'm 33 years old. Wasn't planning on, I'm gonna do this for my life. My plan was music. So, and then I was gonna do the comedy thing until the music popped through somehow, And so at that point, I was just like, I'm just gonna teach jiu-jitsu until my music pops. That was the plan. Right when I first opened 10 Planet, I was just gonna do it until the music popped. And, obviously now, the music never popped, thank God. now I'm just...
Whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story. But, yeah, I quit Comedy Central, walked off that show, and never looked back. And then from that point on, it was 10 Planet never stopped. Just kept growing and growing and growing.
Did you know as soon as you beat Royler, regardless of what happens next, that's it? You're made?
No, I wasn't thinking that. You know what? Leo Vieira beat the shit out of me the next fight.
Yeah.
So
did he go back down to reality?
Yeah.
Okay,
At that point, because that year they did. How they do they'll do the first 2 rounds on Saturday and then the second 2 rounds on Sunday. Well, that time they did 3 rounds on Saturday and the finals on Sunday.
Oh wow! That's deep.
So I beat Gustavo Dantas in the first round, and then I had Royler in the second round. That was the second round, and I beat him, and then Leo Vieira beat my ass. So I never had a chance to celebrate with the Royler win. You know what I mean? Because I won, and I already knew I had Leo Vieira like in a half an hour. So
was
I
it
was
half
happy,
an hour, Eddie?
But I was like, oh my God, it was something like that. It was coming up, and I already knew. I'm like, people are like, Joe was freaking out. Everyone's freaking out. Do you realize what you just did, dude? Like everyone's freaking out. I'm like, yeah. I got Leo Vieira next. Oh my God, he's gonna crush all this. So it was like I won $1 billion, but then I knew someone was going to take that $1 billion from me because I owed him somehow. And like, how could I be happy that I won $1 billion when I got to pay, when I owe $1 billion? So, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of backstage footage of me and like interviews, and you could tell that I wasn't that happy. At first I was crying, like right when it happened, I couldn't believe it. I was just in the moment. But as I was walking back to the locker room, like, oh my God, Leo Vieira's going to take this all away from me. And I was scared to death of him more than I was Royler, because the ADCC prior, he went against Jean Jacques. He was fighting at 170. He didn't go down to 45. Mm-hmm. He was at 170, and he had a match with Jean Jacques, and Jean Jacques beat him on points and beat him pretty good. He was all over him. But he couldn't put him away, and that spooked me. I'm like, damn, that Jean Jacques couldn't finish this guy? Because Jean Jacques crushes me. He'd finish me anytime he wanted. So the fact that he couldn't finish him made me think like this guy's an animal. And plus he is already that he was the new superstar. He was like, like Nicky Ryan. You know,
well, he cemented his superstar status kind of similar to you. He went toe to toe with Mark Kerr.
Yeah, 2000.
Mark Kerr couldn't really control him.
Yeah.
So he was a beast. So he was kind of like you.
Totally.
He didn't win that. I don't think he won that division that year, right?
Leo? No.
Yeah, he didn't win it, but he said that everyone remembers the Leo versus Mark Kerr.
Yeah.
So he was hot.
Yeah. So when I heard he was cutting down to 145, I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't have to go against that animal. And I'm like, he can't make 145. I was hoping he couldn't make it, and then he made it. And like, man. So even though Royler had won it the 3 previous years and no one had ever scored a point on him, he was just the dominator. I was more worried about Leo Vieira, to tell you the truth, because he looked stronger than Royler. Royler, to me, at that point, when I'd look at him, I'm like, he doesn't look that strong, you know. And in my head, if I look at you and you don't look as strong as me, I feel like you have no chance. I feel like the only way you're going to beat
Southern
me,
California, baby.
I feel
Visual.
I feel like anytime, but then it goes the other way too. If I'm facing an opponent and he's shredded and he's got muscle, I already think, okay, I'm going to lose. You know, this guy he's too strong. You know, but if I feel like, so I look at Royler, I'm like, I know it's Royler Gracie, but I feel like I could break this dude. But right when we started, right when we locked up, I realized, oh shit, this guy's way stronger than he looks. Holy shit. So right away I was like, I'm going to have trouble with this guy. Big. He is not weak. He's super strong. But so it's like winning the Super Bowl, you know what I mean? And you're celebrating, popping bottles in the locker room, and they say, hey, you guys got to go out and play another game against you know, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. You're like, oh no, we just won a Super Bowl. Now you're going to lose the Super Bowl. You know, I wish I would have had that Saturday night to celebrate. I wish.
Like today's structure with ADCC.
And then getting to what you were saying, you know, up to that point, when I went to Brazil, I was all about Brazil. Like, I was ready to get a tattoo of a Brazilian flag on my back. My instructors were all Brazilian. Yeah. I'd been to Brazil back in 2000, a few years before. Loved everything about Brazil. You know, everything. Isn't, you know, the food, the women, the beaches. It was incredible.
I overheard you last night speaking to Bochecha and them about the women in Brazil when you went to the Mundials in 2000, and you were you didn't even care to compete. You were just all about where are the women?
Yeah, exactly. Well, our instructors, they kept telling us, like, oh man, Brazil's insane. It's 13 girls for every guy. Like, that's what all the Americans thought.
Every man.
That's what they were saying. Remember that? They were saying that back then. Some guys, some Brazilians would say it's 11 girls to every guy. Some guys said it was 13 girls to every guy. Other guys would say it's 9 girls to every guy. Like, what is up with that?
It's like a planet full of women, and
so we could.
You're like the only man
we
left.
just wanted to go to see if this was true. You know what I mean? And it was true. There's like a shortage of men out there. So I was all about Brazil. Acai, favorite thing to eat. I ate acai 3-4 times a day while I was out there. The churrascarias, the way they serve their meat. It's like, Jesus Christ, the Brazilians rule. And then, you know, they invented jiu-jitsu. What they did to
banana guarana.
Yeah, so what they did to jiu-jitsu is, you know, especially what they did for martial arts, you know, and then the UFC and so when after Abu Dhabi, I remember being in the lobby of the hotel, and all the fighters were there, and there was a guy from Gracie magazine, right?
Luca?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's like, everybody seemed to be happy about. It was like I was part of the family. It wasn't like a foreigner tapped out. The prince, you know what I mean? Like Royler was like the prodigal son. You know, he was the one that was, you know, Royce didn't win world championships in the gi. neither did Hickson. He didn't win any. Like the modern one, the Royler was right there. He was the modern Gracie winning everything.
Right.
The gi, no gi. He was doing MMA. He fought Sakuraba.
Yeah, knuckle.
Only Mario Sperry beat him, and Mario Sperry overweighed him.
I mean, so Royler was the real deal. Henzo too. Henzo and Royler were the top modern competitors. So, and I felt like I was Brazilian. I really did. I'm like Jean Jacques. He's like my father. And and then after in the hotel lobby, they were like showing me the picture of the triangle that Royler was in, and Luca was telling me, man, we're gonna put this on the cover of Gracie magazine in the Abu Dhabi. I'm like, whoa, I couldn't believe it. So I was feeling good about that, and I get back to the States, and I'm like excited as hell. I see Jean Jacques, and I'm telling him all about it. And Jean Jacques' wife was right there, and I said, man, they're gonna put me on the cover of Gracie magazine, Jean Jacques. And then his wife goes, they're not gonna put you on the cover of Gracie magazine.
Man, yeah.
And I go, Luca told me they were. And she goes, they're not gonna do. You think they're gonna do that to Royler? I'm like, yeah, they told me they were gonna do that. And guess what? She was right. She was right. Not only did they not put me on the cover, but they didn't put that picture anywhere in the magazine of me triangling Royler.
That's crazy.
It was just like one little sentence. Oh, by the way, Eddie Bravo beat Royler Gracie. Blah, blah. But then I couldn't fight for third because when I fought Leo, I popped a rib. So I couldn't go on and fight for third place. So they had to bring Royler back to fight for third place, and he fought Soka, and he beat him. So Royler got third, and
that's crazy.
they talked about that. They showed a cool picture from that fight, but they basically swept that under the rug and buried it. Jean Jacques' wife was 100% right.
Revisionist.
Yeah, and she knew that that they weren't going to do that. So at that point, I felt like the BJJ community right there. I felt like, okay, damn, they don't give a shit about me. And when you combine that with the fact that I was already the no-gi guy at Jean Jacques. I was already, like, right as a white belt. I'm like, okay, I got into jiu-jitsu because of the UFC. I didn't get into the UFC because of jiu-jitsu. So nobody in the UFC wears a gi except for Royce. No one else is wearing a gi. I go, this is going to be a problem at some point, because in the beginning, if you're just a pure gi guy and you're going against guys that have zero ground experience, yeah, you're just going to take them out really easy. All the little details and grips and all that are not going to matter. But they are going to matter when your opponents are really good at jiu-jitsu. Now, the fact that you're setting everything up by grabbing the collar and grabbing the sleeve, every setup requires some kind of grab of the jacket, it's going to be a problem. Because when the jacket's not there, your setups are gone. If your setups are gone, everybody knows you don't have any setups. You don't have anything in any sport. Everything is set up. You set up everything. It's a game of deception. Now you got to change your setup. Now there's no collar. I thought, okay, this is going to be a problem. So this was back as a white belt. I knew this. So I was always making sure that I didn't get too reliant on collar chokes. I go, it's impossible not to grab the gi when you're rolling with the gi, but I wanted to minimize it and use grips like no gi grips as often as possible, which basically wrestling clinches and overhooks and underhooks and head control as much as I could. So when the gi came off, that my game wouldn't be that altered, but anyways, so I was always a no-gi guy, and every now and then I would say, man, if my music doesn't blow up, and that's a big if I had to, gun to my head, if I had to open up a jiu-jitsu school, I would definitely do it no-gi, because we were doing no-gi like on Thursday nights, and that was my favorite, just no-gi night. Oh, it's gonna be awesome. But I thought, like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a school that had no-gi every night, every day? That would be amazing. amazing. That'd be like a fantasy school.
Wh-
That's
when-
what I thought.
Which belt were you when you decided to make the switch? Like, did you do it through brown belt with the gi and then stopped? Or
I was always going no gi, from white belt to blue belt. We were training with the gi. We show up and we do the technique with the gi. But as soon as it was cool with Jean Jacques, we're like, can we do some no gi rounds too? I wanted to do no gi. I was always a no gi guy. So when I got back from Abu Dhabi 2013, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna open up a school. It was everybody that knew me. They weren't shocked that I went no gi. I was always the no gi guy, you know. And I wanted to work on jiu-jitsu that would work. I wanted to fix MMA bottom game. I thought, in my opinion, the bottom game wasn't developed right because you had all these jiu-jitsu guys who were down to play bottom game, but they were always practicing with the call on the sleeve. I'm like, how is that going to translate? And there's punches now. You're going to go into MMA. Not only is there no collar and no sleeve, but now there's punches and elbows. It's a whole different game. So what ended up happening is you never really saw anybody. It was rare that you saw a jiu-jitsu player that had an amazing guard where you had to really worry. I mean, it wasn't until a Minotauro, like 2001, where you're like, oh my God, finally, now we have someone who's attacking beautifully with a guard in MMA. You didn't really see that much. You didn't see it. You saw a lot of jiu-jitsu guys on their back, and they weren't really attacking.
So you must have studied the Omri Patesh Don Fry fight. That must have been going through your mind too, stuff like that. Yeah.
There was a couple. I forget the guy's name.
Fabio Gurgel of Asmaka.
no, even if you
That's
look
another one too. That's another one. But Fabio Gurgel, I mean,
Maurice Smith.
he's awesome. I love Fabio Gurgel.
Maurice Smith,
I forget the
Conan.
guy's. He was a Hickson black belt. Something Ferreira. Something Ferreira. He fought Matt Hughes in some MMA show, Battlecade or one of those, and Matt Hughes was on top of him in his guard the whole fight. The guy never attacked Matt Hughes once, and Matt Hughes was just like bringing down hammers and elbows and ripping his face apart. And I thought, when is he going to go for an armbar? And that's when I realized, man, this is a big problem. You guys don't see this problem? There's a big problem for jiu-jitsu. I don't see any attacking guard. Like now, like you don't see that many anymore, or you don't see many even now, but you have a guy like Vinny Magalhaes, you have a guy like Ben Saunders, you end up in their guard, they're going to attack you. They're going to win off their back. So it's something that I wanted to develop. That was the first plan. To win jiu-jitsu tournaments, point tournaments, and all that gi tournaments, that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. But 10th Planet from day one was like special ops. We got a special little project. Fix the guard in MMA. So that's what I was focusing on. So from the outside, looking at it from Brazil, and you're looking at me, here's this American guy who beat Royler Gracie, a Brazilian guy, who now opened up his school, shed the gi, and now is criticizing collars and sleeves. So they thought I was basically turning my back on jiu-jitsu and giving him the finger. That's what they thought. They didn't realize that, no, I'm doing this for us. You guys, no one else wants to take off their gi and try to improve. Yeah, like all I root for in MMA, even to the States, jiu-jitsu guys. I know Muay Thai guys are awesome. I love Muay Thai. I love wrestling. I love judo. I love kickboxing. All that stuff. I respect the hell out of all of it. But I'm always rooting for the jiu-jitsu guy. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I even wrestled in high school. And I would always pick a jiu-jitsu guy over a wrestler. Jiu-jitsu that's my true love. And so I did that. I did it for jiu-jitsu. I wasn't changing jiu-jitsu and then started calling it something else like catch wrestling or 10 Planet submission grappling. It's always jiu-jitsu. It's always been jiu-jitsu. It's always been about jiu-jitsu. Everything I've done was for jiu-jitsu, technically. Was to try to bring it back. I mean, there was a period where wrestlers were just smashing jiu-jitsu guards. And so that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to fix it. But I could see how the Brazilians looked at it like me, like I thought I was better than them or something. When I didn't think I was better than you. I'm like, just no one's working on this problem, and I'm gonna work on it. So that's what happened. So that's where all the, and then I had to defend myself because then they would come out and say things in the press about me, and then it was hard. I was handcuffed because I became like the black sheep of jiu-jitsu, not because I wanted to. I was just trying to fix jiu-jitsu. That's all I was trying to do in MMA. I'm not trying to fix jiu-jitsu in the gi. Keep doing that. It's a beautiful thing. No problem with that. I'm not trying to end jiu-jitsu or gi jiu-jitsu. I'm not trying to end points tournaments. I'm just adding to it. That's it.
It's funny they felt that way, even though you had the blessing of Jean Jacques, who is a traditionalist, right?
But Jean Jacques had a big falling out with Carlinhos too, which is the son of
because of you, like
no, before me. It had nothing to do with me. So he already had a falling out. So Jean Jacques was already that considered like an outcast of the Gracie family for a minute there. For him and Carlinhos were button heads, and Carlinhos was the main dude. He's the main dude in IBJJF, which is the biggest federation in jiu-jitsu. The biggest tournaments are IBJJF. Carlinhos is the head of that. He's the son of the inventor of jiu-jitsu, and him and Jean Jacques, he gave Jean Jacques his black belt. Then they had a little falling out, and but now they're cool. They're cool now.
I like the Carlson story too.
But so me being Jean Jacques' student, they just wanted to hate me even for that. So all this other stuff just compounded it and made it worse. So it was very hard to defend myself. It's very, very hard to defend myself because I got some guys getting on the internet, calling me an idiot, calling me a faggot, like big motherfucking Brazilians, like 230-pound Brazilians. I'm like, what am I going to say? So it was very hard for me to publicly fire back. My hands were tied. Like, I don't want to get killed. I'm by myself over here. No one's.
So you felt the threat of somebody coming to your school maybe too, Eddie? Or?
If I would have fired back and said things that I really felt like, who are you? Like, what do you, like, if I would have just said, I would have felt like, okay, I'm just gonna make things worse. I gotta somehow explain my points in a non-confrontational way, which handcuffed me. You know what I mean? I couldn't give him examples that included other fighters' names because now that guy would hate me. You know what I mean? So I couldn't use it. Like, I couldn't use data. I could just explain things in general terms. But the whole jiu-jitsu community was against me.
But this has all disappeared now, right? Or do you still see?
No.
A lot of it has.
Okay, wait.
A lot of it has.
We're gonna get to that.
No, a lot of it has.
When it comes to you,
a lot of it has. A lot of it is. It's a lot better now. Okay. But still, deep down inside, I'm sure Carlinhos doesn't like me. I'm sure.
Okay, let's open the subject. I'm gonna tie your experience with what's going on today. Last night I was reading on social media, Instagram. There was Cyborg going crazy about his decision with Nick Rodriguez, right? You've seen it,
yeah. I filmed that fight.
I'm not sure if you've seen it as well. He was like very upset.
Yeah.
And I looked at the comments and I saw Keenan Cornelius out there saying, okay, now you guys know how it feels to be on the other side because we compete in IBJJF and we get all the referees helping you guys win your fights. Now with ADCC, you can't say shit because they're Finnish and Bulgarian refs. So they really don't care if Luke beats Brad or Fabricio. You know what I mean? So I saw whatever you talked about with your experience, it's kind of still happening with the new generation, with like Keenan. I don't know what's going on. I don't follow too much gi jiu-jitsu, to be honest, except when I commentate on the UAE JJF. But I see some issues going on with some of the American grapplers.
It's a rival thing. It's more than just Brazil against the world or Brazil versus Americans. It's more than that. It's deeper. It's more about teams versus teams, really. That's where most of the bias comes. It's teams versus teams because there's bias within the Brazilian community. Like the tournaments that go on in Brazil, the bias going on has nothing to do with Americans. Sure, if an American flies in and, I'm sure there's a couple of Americans, I'm sure they're not going to get if the decision can go either way, I'm sure they're not going to get it. Which is, if you're not on your home turf, you got to expect that. Happens in boxing all the time. So it's really not that big of a deal to be biased. Like if it's a tournament's in Brazil and it's a close match and it's a referee's decision and they give it to the Brazilian, you got to understand that. They've been talking about that in boxing forever. But it's more of bias between clubs, between Gracie Barra, Nova Union, 10th Planet, whether it's 10th Planet or another school, there's always going to be like my school, especially if there's some personal shit going on too. It's more of your team. It's a team bias thing. And now, especially, in ADCC, like you said, I don't know anything about how the judges or anything like that. I really don't pay attention to the judges. And I don't really look into it and try to figure out if there's some kind of bias or look into their backgrounds. I don't even know.
It could be just subjective too, right? I mean, I see a fight differently than you and vice versa.
Yeah, of course. When there's 0-0 judge's decision, of course there's going to be people that disagree with whatever decision
your fundamental training. How you
no one's going to agree with everyone.
Just like MMA, it's never leave it to the judges. Could go for grappling too.
Different, viewpoints.
Yeah, that's why these problems, like the problem with cyber, these aren't new problems. These are problems that since day one in jiu-jitsu tournaments and probably all tournaments. I'm sure judo and everything too. So it's been day one. So that's since I was a white belt, blue belt, purple belt. Everybody complained. I was complaining as a blue belt. I should have been points. How come I didn't get points? Or he got points. What did he do? That was no point. That is every single tournament ever. Even like non-Brazilian tournaments like NAGA or Grappler's Quest. Any tournament where there's judges or a ref who's giving points, he's a judge. The ref is
probably
giving
from
points.
The ancient Olympics too, right?
They're all judges. So that's why when I did EBI, that's why I took out all the judges. There's no judges. The referee is just a babysitter. There's the way it's set up is the competitors are going to decide.
Sudden death, yeah.
They're going to decide who wins. There's not going to be any judges, no refs with any a bias on giving points or anything like that. That wasn't a coincidence. That was done purposely. Because that's the problem with jiu-jitsu is the refs and the judges and the points. I mean, in IBJJF now they got like they got like a replay system, and like in football you could replay, which is great. But why not just make it sub only?
They're copying the judo method basically. That's what judo does with the replays, right?
Too much power is given to the judges and to the refs. Just way too much power. That's why I do my tournaments the way I do. It's like they have no power in my tournaments.
Well, to play devil's advocate at a very high level, it's hard to get a sub all the time. So
that's why we have EBIOT.
We're
going to get a sub one way or another.
Yeah.
Just like soccer, it's very hard to score goals in soccer at the high level. That's why, what do they do at the end? Free kicks.
Yeah.
Free kicks at the end. It's the same thing. Same thing in college football. What do they do in college football? They go to overtime. Each team gets the ball at the 35 and see if they could score. Right in scoring, they put them in scoring position. Yeah. And just like, on your back. You're on the 35-yard line in football. That's like a dude is mounting you. You know what I mean? And they have a shootout.
Yeah. Sometimes when I watch the EBI, I'm almost just waiting for the shootout because the shootout is so fun. You're like, okay,
one day we're going to have pure EBIOT. One day we're going to have that's it.
Yeah.
This guy versus this guy in EBIOT rounds.
Because some matches, they're not going to be a subs. You just wait for them to mess around, do their moves.
Yeah. We've seen it with Metamoris and with other organizations. I mean,
but they don't do the sudden death in Metamoris.
No, but I mean the sub only, right?
Yeah.
Or it's a draw.
Very rarely a sub in Metamoris. I've seen like whole cards in Metamoris.
Speaking of Metamoris, I don't know if you remember that. I honestly, had the day I had a lot of respect for you as an individual was not only the day I met you and trained with you. Is I emailed you one time. I tried to make Eddie Bravo, Royler Gracie. You don't know the story. Right. I didn't tell you the story. No. I tried to make Eddie Bravo, Royler.
Boss, can you do that again? I'm going to go make a phone call for my surgery thing. Can you start that again? Can we do a little cut real quick? Can you just repeat that? Thank you. I'll be like 10 minutes, boss.
You could have just left, man. It's a fucking podcast. It's just.
We could just not. Yeah, we could just like
There's no
not
rules in
use
the
this
regular
camera,
trains.
right? And no
Yeah.
one would ever know, right?
Yeah. No, I mean it doesn't have to be clean.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Can we just go ahead? He ruined the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just keep the comedy with Bobby Razak going on. So I emailed you to make Eddie Bravo Royler Gracie 2 in the Abu Dhabi World Pro Jiu-Jitsu Championship, and you emailed me back saying, this is when I realized, like, wow, like, okay, this could happen. You told me, I don't need anything. I just need you to get me my tickets for me and my corner, and I'll do it. That's what you told me. I probably have the email somewhere too in my archive, but then I went to Hoyce, because I didn't know Royler at the time. I tried to get him to, I was like, okay, I have Eddie kind of, willing to do this fight. So let's do it at the Abu Dhabi World Pro. And he contacts Royler, and the whole money issue comes in, and he's going to do it for a certain fee, and then it just blew up. Then after a few years, the ADCC guys, I had a meeting with Marco and probably Mo Jassim one day at a restaurant. I told them about the story, and they're like, okay, let's meet and let's talk about it. And they probably maybe contacted you. They tried to do it in ADCC. They contacted you. Obviously, everything went well with you again. But then that whole issue happened with Guy, I believe, or the ADCC and Royler.
Well, what actually happened was Sheikh Tak Noon flew me out for a week.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So I was out there training with him for a week, and after we were done, he said, he's just sitting in his gym. We're just sitting there, and he's like in this little weight rack, and he said, what fight do you want? I'm going to make that fight happen right now. What do you want? Who do you want right now? I said, do you think you can make Royler rematch happen again? And he said, easy. Called up Renzo. Renzo called up Royler. Royler agreed. Renzo calls me, or calls him, and says, boom, it's on. So just like that, it was just on. No negotiations, no nothing. I wouldn't bring up any money or anything. But it was going to be $75,000 winner take all.
Wow. In ADCC?
Yeah.
That's like
winner take all.
Destroying the conservative element of ADCC, because they don't want to change the, like go wild on anything. So that's like pretty much the first time they kind of gave leverage, or they compromised, right?
I didn't ask for that. I didn't. That
and he still rejected it, right?
He wanted more money.
Did Metamoris offer that money?
So as soon as what ended up happening is he accepted it, right? It's next day. It's all over the news. It's on. He does an interview. He says lightning's not going to strike twice. He got lucky that first time. All that stuff. Like it's on, like Donkey Kong, right?
I remember that. Yeah.
And then I did an interview. It was on. And then Guy calls me up and says, I don't think Royler's going to back out. And I said, what do you think? I mean, he just did an interview. He goes, read the end of the interview. So I went through it, and he said, well, the contracts aren't signed yet. We still got a little negotiations to do, but it looks like it's probably going to happen. So when Guy read that, he realized, okay, I know what he's doing. He's going to back out of this because nobody negotiates with Abu Dhabi. Nobody. You just do it or you don't. You know what I mean? There's never been any negotiations. Yeah. And all of a sudden, and he's been in Abu Dhabi 4 times, and all of a sudden he wants to negotiate. So that, to Guy, man, it wasn't on. So, and that's exactly what happened. He said he wanted more money, and they said, hell no. So it didn't happen. And then I would say a couple years pass, and then Halleck calls me up, and he says, do you want to do the rematch with Royler at Metamoris? And I thought, of course, obviously. And I would have did it for $1,000. I would have did it for $1,000, really. Yeah. But once I heard
from day one, actually.
But then once I heard what everybody was getting paid in Metamoris, once I heard what everyone, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's getting $30,000. This guy's getting $40,000. What? I go, okay. So I asked for more than $1,000, and I got it. And it happened, and there was a lot of I guess you could call it kind of like red tape maybe, but there was a lot of problems actually trying to, like, the negotiations. It was crazy. I don't know if you remember, like, the whole situation with my pants.
Oh yeah,
that?
Of course, yeah, right.
Like, all that
they
stuff.
try to change, so you couldn't use pants, shorts, you can't grip or something like that.
Yeah, it was like because I was wearing pants, so Royler found out I was wearing pants. So what ended up happening is I didn't know if what I should wear, like, you know. Wear a rash guard? Should I not wear a rash guard? Should I wear my pants? Should I wear shorts? Should I wear tights? Should I wear spats? I didn't know. Everybody wears different stuff, right? So at first I said, okay, fuck it. I'm just gonna. I was worried about him. I was worried about leg locks. So generally, I always wear pants and ankle sleeves because when I put a lockdown in, it's very hard to get out of. But I knew he didn't hesitate going for foot locks, and I thought, man, he might jump on my legs. Maybe I should just wear shorts and tights. I wasn't sure. So I started training with pants, and I went to Jean Jacques, and all those guys grab pants all the time. And I'm like, no, how did it go? No, first I decided to wear shorts. Then I did some training, and then I go, you know, what am I doing? I'm just going to wear what I always wear, pants. So I looked at the contract, and it said all competitors must wear board shorts and rash guard, and I'm like, oh, is this actually saying I can't wear pants? So I called up Halleck. I go, on the contract it says I can't wear pants. I'm going to wear pants. And he goes, I don't think it'll be a problem. I'm like, I shouldn't even be asking him. I could just wear whatever I want, pants or whatever. So then he goes, okay. I asked Royler, and he said you could wear pants as long as he could grab them.
I remember that.
And I'm like, grab them? What do you mean? So I could grab his shorts? He goes, no, you can't grab shorts because people don't grab shorts, but they grab pants. I go, wait a minute. What's the difference? Pants, shorts, just because they go past your knees, all of a sudden now you could grab them? But if they stop here, you can't grab them. But if they go here, you could grab them. If they go here and they're form fitting, now you can. If they're spats, no one grabs spats. No one grabs tights. So if you're wearing tights and shorts, can't grab anything. But if you're wearing pants, now all of a sudden you can grab them just because they do it in the gi. Doesn't make any sense. So I said, okay, he can grab them. I don't care, but I'm gonna grab his shorts and rip them off. And then it became a big deal. Like, oh, you're not going to grab his shorts. I'm like, he's grabbing my pants. I train in pants all the time. No one ever grabs them. When you go no gi, you can't grab clothes. It's no big deal. You just can't. It's not crazy. You're wearing. So it became a big problem. So I trained a little bit. I remember training with Todd White. And he was grabbing the hell out of my pants and passing my guard by grabbing. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't wear pants. Damn, I thought I could. Maybe it is a bad idea. So I told Halleck, I ain't going to wear pants. He goes, no, you have to wear pants. You can't switch it up. Because Royler said, I'll let him wear pants, but he can't change his mind. Like now they're dictating
all
what I
these
can
mind
wear.
games, man.
Yeah, but I can't change my mind? Like I can't just show up in board shorts day of. And that's going to be a problem? What's going on here? So... and then Halleck thought, okay, this is the new rule. I talked to Royler's lawyer and they said, okay, you could grab everything. You could grab rash guards. You could pull on rash guards and pull on pants and shorts. I'm like, you know how ridiculous that's going to look? We're grabbing rash guards? What are you thinking? It's going to look ridiculous. So then it was crazy. And then then I decided, okay, no grabbing rash guards because I don't want to waste my time training all this time and then we're grabbing rash guards. It's going to be ridiculous. I go, I'm going to wear pants and he could grab my pants and I can't grab none of his stuff. Let's just do this. I go, grab my pants then. So he grabbed the hell out of him. He was grabbing, like he was putting his hand in the back of my pants and grabbing like this. Like he was grabbing my pants like that, dude. Like in the guard, he would grab him. It's like, whoa, this guy's really taking advantage of that.
Yeah, but you guys have a good relationship now. I saw you guys yesterday.
We're totally cool. We're totally cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think, as you get older, I never had a problem. I thought I was always appreciative of just being in the middle of everything, win or lose. I was like, I already beat him, so I'm like, even if I lose Metamoris, I'm still in the mix. You know what I mean? But I felt like I needed to win, though. I felt like to prove my philosophies, you know. And
yeah. What was it like training with Sheikh Tahnoun? How did he end up inviting you? Was it because he's always been he's like you. He's a no-gi guy. He's a no-gi guy. You know that, right?
Guy contacted me and he said, you know, Sheikh wants to fly you in. I'm like, let's do it. And that's it. Real simple.
I mean, it's amazing that he also has the same story. He doesn't. I mean, he trained with the gi at a certain point, but then he just like, you know,
he's all no gi.
He's all no gi. Yeah, for sure. Another thing is we just saw the ADCC. A lot of things happened there. You know, the third American won the absolute in the history of the ADCC. The last time was 2003, where you beat Royler. It was Dean Lister. So
that was the last time.
Yeah. So Mark Kerr in 2000, and then Dean Lister in 2003. I mean, is it Robert Drysdale in 2007 considered? I mean, he's half Brazilian. Technically, we could say Lister. I don't know. I mean, regardless, even if he's the fourth American to win it, it's still a big deal because at least the last 4 or 5 or since 2005.
Look at how Nick Rodriguez did great.
Yeah.
Gordon Ryan did fabulous. Gary Tonin, he did really good too.
JT.
Those are all. Those are no-gi guys. You know, those are sub-only guys. You know, those are EBI guys. Yeah. You know, I think Gary Tonin won 5 EBIs. Gordon won 2 or 3.
Gordon's a fan of the overtime OT as well. So EBI OT,
EBI OT is we're going to change the name of that just to Jiu-Jitsu training. You know, because that's all it is. Like, what's the essence of Jiu-Jitsu is the rear naked choke and the armbar. Yeah. Like, if you saw somebody with a shirt and had someone getting rear naked choked, you go, dude, you train Jiu-Jitsu? Where do you train? I train too. If you saw a dude with a shirt and a guy's doing an armbar, even if it's a cartoon caricature doing an armbar, you go, you train Jiu-Jitsu? Yeah, where? You know, but if you saw a guy passing the guard, like a picture of a guy passing the guard, you would go, what is that, speed skating? You speed skate?
Yeah. Let Bobby in. Trying to interrupt our podcast, going and leaving. We didn't stop for you, Bobby. We kept this going.
My surgery got cancelled.
So back to the EBIOT.
Yeah.
So when it comes to EBI overtime, it's imagine this. There's jiu-jitsu players that don't want to have a rear naked choke shootout or an armbar shootout. The essence of jiu-jitsu. It's like a free kick. It's like, because we don't train that enough. It's incredible. Yeah. Even if you don't train rear naked chokes and arm bars, like in those dead zone positions, like right there, boom, that's very, very important. And one thing you learn from training EBIOT or jiu-jitsu, you learn really quick, like, wow, we should be doing this like every day because it makes such a big difference. That's how you turn into a Marcelo Garcia on the back. Is by practicing those EBIOT rounds. Why do you think DDS is so good with back takes? When they get on your back, they're better at the back than they are leg locks these days. You know what I mean? And Danaher has said it before. He goes, man, working on these EBIOT rounds, things just grow. Like the defense grows. There's all these different ways to defend rear naked chokes, and it's not like one move to get out of a rear naked choke. There's a series of moves that you got to put together, and everyone's got their own little series and own sequences of their little map of how to get out of the situation, you know. And the only way you're gonna master the rear naked choke offensively and defensively, the only way you're gonna master the arm bar offensively and defensively, these two positions that are the essence of jiu-jitsu, the only way is by spending a lot of time there. And you're only going to spend time there either in your rolling, when you end up in those situations organically through rolls, or when you do live drill situations, when you practice EBIOT, aka jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So if like Trump outlawed EBI rules, EBIOT, we would still practice. If there was no tournaments out there that utilize EBIOT, at my school, they would still be in the curriculum. It could, because that's what jiu-jitsu is. It is the rear naked choke and it is the arm bar. And you have to spend a lot of time there. So to not want to be a jiu-jitsu black belt and to like think those are ridiculous rules, that's ridiculous. You know who doesn't complain about EBIOT? Gary Tonin doesn't, because when you take Gary Tonin to OT, you're in trouble. And I designed EBIOT to ensure that the best grappler, the best submission grappler, the best jiu-jitsu artist. And what's jiu-jitsu? Armbar and rear naked choke. Who's the best? If you look at the numbers on paper, who has the most submissions in Abu Dhabi? That's who the best is, Marcelo Garcia. He's the best. But in certain formats, he can be beat by people that aren't as a good a submission as him. Like Marcelo Garcia is the best. All right, he's the best. He has more submissions in Abu Dhabi than anybody, right? They're like 28 or 25 or something. So imagine he's in a tournament and he goes into OT, and the OT is like sudden death. Whoever gets the first points, even if it's not sudden death, even if it's just like 5-minute overtime, generally the competitor with the best wrestling is going to win. Especially if you pull guard, you get a -1, you just lost, dude. So in OT, you can't pull guard, because as soon as you pull guard, that's -1. Now the other guy's just going to dance around and kill time. He already won. He's not going to take a chance. So the submission, jiu-jitsu is not even going to come up, because the guy on top doesn't even want to play jiu-jitsu. He's not going to want to pass the guard. Why would he do that? Why would you take a chance? If that was my guy and I was coaching, I'm like, do not do anything. Dance around. You got 2 minutes. Just dance around. Or like pretend like you want to get in there, just be real cautious, but you're not really trying to pass. You're just trying to kill the time. So there is no jiu-jitsu. So Marcelo Garcia could be beat like that. He could be beat if a wrestler could drag him into OT, and he could beat him like that. But you know what? That guy would never beat him in EBIOT. You know who would win you know who would be the best at EBIOT in the world? Marcelo Garcia. You could never beat him in overtime. The overtime was meant so that the best submission artist wins. And you look at all EBIs. Look at the winners of all EBIs. Is there any EBI where the winner didn't deserve it, where the guy who won it wasn't the best guy? No. Yeah. It's always the best guy. Gordon wasn't like worried about OT. You know why? Because he did his homework. He practiced rear naked chokes and arm bars offensively and defensively. You should be doing that anyways. You should be doing that all the time. So all those guys, they were all balls deep in EBI, and all of them are really good on the back. All of the Danaher guys, all my guys are really good on the back too, and escaping. It's part of our regular curriculum. We practice arm bars and rear naked chokes, the art of finishing those things, keeping control, the art of getting out of those horrible positions as well. They're simultaneously being worked on consistently in the curriculum. I don't even think about it. Like today is H Day at HQ, 10th Planet HQ. When I go down there, we're going to, at the end of the live drills, we're going to have 10 minutes of EBIOT. No matter what. No matter if anybody's training for an EBI tournament or not. So, BJJ Fanatics, they put out like all the best jiu-jitsu instructionals out there. They got a tournament now. They're doing a tournament. They just did a 16-man ultimate brown belt tournament, and they're doing EBI rules too, and it's a beautiful thing. I talked to them. I talked to Bernardo and his partner this weekend at ADCC, and I was like, I just wanted them to know that I was happy about it. It's like I really enjoyed watching their last tournament, and it wasn't just because we had 2 10th Planet guys in the finals, but it was just because it's just more entertaining for me to watch jiu-jitsu where the submission is the main goal, and basically the only goal. It's the main one. If you don't like that EBIOT, that's gonna light a fire under your ass to get the job done in regulation. If you don't want to go to overtime, but Gordon Ryan doesn't mind going to OT. He always wins in OT. You know what I mean? right? Marcelo Garcia, even like Rafa Mendez, he would always win an OT. Cobrina would always win an OT. You know, so
The greats win an OT.
yeah, they'll all win. Like
You can tell which one is
Hodger
like the
Gracie.
Ali 13
imagine
to 15
imagine
rounds.
Hodger Gracie in OT. He would
Yeah.
kill everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the goal. It ensures that your rear naked chokes and arm bars are as high level as you can get them, offensively and defensively. That's what it's about. It's not EBIOT. It's jiu-jitsu.
That's amazing because people talk about ADCC rules, IBJJF rules. Now there are EBIOT rules, and anyone can use them, right? I mean, you just mentioned.
Did you have to license them out, or how's it
What's
work? If somebody use EBI rules, they have to get your permission?
No. If they use EBI rules, just say EBI rules or EBIOT.
Got it.
That's it. Just say that. You know, Chael Sonnen, he was one of the first to jump on it. But now so many tournaments like Ultimate Mat Warriors, Finishers, Midwest Finishers, Rise. There's a bunch of tournaments. Like I got schools all over the world, and most of my guys in their local area, they run the tournament, the sub-only tournament, and they run it with EBI rules. 16-man tournament, EBI OT, boom, everybody. So we're trying to unify that.
Going back to the ADCC, I mean, I've seen you were like, you were there the whole time, regardless of whether your fighters were there or not. You watched the whole thing. What captivated you about that event in terms of performances? Like people talked about, the Absolute with Australian Lachlan Giles, or obviously Gordon Ryan or Nick Rodriguez. Like Eddie Bravo sitting there in the back watching.
Obviously, I'm there for my students and the 10 Planet guys. And, we had 3 10 Planet guys in the Final Four, which is the best we've ever done in ADCC. Gio's made the Final Four before, but we had 3 in the Final Four this time. That was the best we ever done. John Thor Blank, he won his first 2. He got to compete on Sunday too. And Elvira Karpinen, she got the bronze. And it was the best performance we've done so far. And every year we just keep getting a little better, because ADCC is predominantly a wrestling. You got to have your wrestling together. And at HQ, we never work on wrestling, barely. We're working on just jiu-jitsu. So we're not preparing for ADCC like other schools are, but we still love it. I'm just not heavy into teaching wrestling, and that's super important in ADCC, but we love it anyways. And besides watching my guys and rooting for my guys and enjoying watching them compete and go through the their wins and losses with them, I love watching the sub-only guys come in, like all the like Gordon and Gary and Nicky Ryan, Lachlan Giles, Craig Jones. Most of those guys were in EBI. We blew them up first. So to watch them in ADCC perform like the way they perform, I still feel a little vindication. Like, say, look, these guys never train in the gi. Because back in the day when everyone was hating on me, I was saying we're going to train without the gi to help improve MMA jiu-jitsu. And the BJJ community was like, you need the gi. Why are you saying that? Why are you saying you don't need the gi? You need the gi. All the best ADCC guys, they're all come from the gi. Look at ADCC. They all come from the gi. All the best guys. Yeah, because everybody trains in the gi. That's why. Everybody trains in the gi. So now we're finally seeing, look at these guys that don't train in the gi. Gordon Ryan barely trains in the gi. Let's be honest.
Yeah. He played around with it a little bit, but then he's like, nah.
Gary Tonin barely trains in the gi. He trained in the gi, growing up, but he barely trains in it now. If it makes your game better, then that would mean that you should be training in the gi right up to Abu Dhabi. If it makes your game better, why are you taking it off? So you're starting to see that now. You're really starting to see that if you could train in the gi if you want, and the gi is a beautiful sport. It's like chess, or you can not train in the gi. You can just train like, the guys in ADCC compete. They train no gi. No one's wearing a gi in ADCC. There's people being, introduced to jiu-jitsu through ADCC for the very first time. So there's people out there like, okay, I want to do this too. I want to get a rash guard and do what they're doing and choke each other out. They might find out about the gi later. Goes, well, what's a gi? Gi? Like what? There's guys that do ADCC stuff and they wear robes?
But
Like, what is that?
that's the issue with the traditionalists. How can we get out of that shell and convince people that it's okay to grade someone into blue, purple, brown, and black, even though he never did a gi
I do
class
that
in
all the
his life?
time.
You do that, but
I do that all the
you
time.
know, yeah, because in America it's more flexible. Like let's say in somewhere like in Brazil, obviously, but like in the UAE, which is based on a Brazilian system, because most of the coaches we have are Brazilian.
Right.
You know, they will never grade any guy that does simply no gi. Like I remember Rashad Evans when Royler Gracie gave him a black belt. People went crazy online.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But like Nick Rodriguez, who just won silver medal in the
got his
ADCC,
bronze
did like
this
less
year,
than a year of grappling, not even
14 months,
jiu-jitsu.
I think they said,
And he got promoted to purple on the podium. So these things are happening. But do you believe this is, a lot of people like on the traditionalist side say this is destroying the sport? You know how people get protective, like judo, you know, they get protective with their sport and stuff like that.
Well, obviously, I don't think it's destroying the sport because that's how I do it. So I'm not destroying anything. All I'm doing is teaching no gi, training no gi, promoting no gi. It's still jiu-jitsu.
But
you know what I mean?
People are gonna say it's
still
luta
jiu-jitsu.
libre
Like,
or catch wrestling.
So has Rickson ever won an MMA fight using jiu-jitsu?
I mean,
What about Nogueira? Has he ever used jiu-jitsu in a fight? He doesn't wear a gi. So what is it? Catch wrestling? Is he winning with submission wrestling? Like when Royler won his 3 titles at ADCC, he wasn't doing jiu-jitsu?
yeah, they will tell you it's jiu-jitsu, obviously, but you know, I know what you mean.
He didn't have the gi on.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
He didn't go with anybody with a gi, so there was no jiu-jitsu being displayed. It makes no sense. No sense.
It's really a traditional viewpoint. you
So
know,
then,
they're trying
like,
to
Royce
control-
Gracie is the only guy ever in MMA to use jiu-jitsu. He's the only guy. Everyone else is using submission wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
I get you.
ridiculous.
They play
There's
around
no
with
logic.
it.
There's
Yeah,
no reason.
logic to it,
No,
yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. Rickson's never used jiu-jitsu in MMA. Never. Because
Yeah,
You
He
can
never
say the
wore a
same thing
gi?
about Carlson when he fought all these wars
Yeah.
back in the day.
exactly.
know?
I mean, Brazil's a very hot country. I mean, it was natural to take the gi off and train. It's just basically, I think the foundation of jiu-jitsu, they're just trying to keep that kimono as a foundation.
it's
But,
powerful.
You know, the world
if you train in
is
the
evolving.
Well, if you train in the gi your whole life and you have very little no gi training, and some college wrestler shows up to your school
Right.
and he's interested in taking jiu-jitsu, would it be in the best interest of the jiu-jitsu instructor to roll with him with or without gi?
With the gi, of course.
With the gi.
Yeah.
And would
Control
it be in his
mechanism.
best interest to say, we all have to wear gis in this dojo, put on a gi and let's roll, right? He'd probably mangle and strangle him multiple times
Yeah.
in most situations like that. But if this college wrestler comes in and he's a beast, he's like Nick Rodriguez, he comes in and he wants to roll with the instructor, he's thinking about jiu-jitsu, and the instructor takes his gi off, but he's not really a no-gi guy,
Yeah.
they could stalemate.
Yeah.
And then that Nick Rodriguez go, why would I want to take jiu-jitsu from this guy, or at all?
I've never
That's
trained
what
jiu-jitsu in my
happened
life.
with a lot of. That's what happened with a lot of wrestlers. Is the old school wrestlers from the UFC in the '90s? I don't want to name any names or anything, but what ended up happening, the reason why they weren't, there's a couple of reasons why they weren't into jiu-jitsu. One was because the Brazilians are the ones that showed up to the United States and said, we could take everyone out, we're the best, jiu-jitsu's the best. And wrestlers like, wait a minute, fuck you. You know what I mean? So it was a rivalry between the wrestlers and the jiu-jitsu players. Wrestlers like, how are you going to take me down? I'm just going to box you. So the wrestlers, the quick fix for the wrestlers were, I don't need to learn jiu-jitsu. They're not going to be able to take me down, and I'm just going to knock them out. That was the quick fix. But they didn't have the vision to see that eventually you're going to need jiu-jitsu, because you're going to box a kick? What are you going to box, a kickboxer? No, you're going to want to take them down, and if you take them down and you don't know how to pass the guard and finish, they're going to stand you back up, and you're going to get knocked out. The Igor Vovchanch and Mark Kerr, that's what happened. So
One of my favorite fights.
that was a quick fix, right?
Yeah.
So that immediately started the rivalry, and the wrestlers that did, want to go in and maybe perhaps do jiu-jitsu, they'd go in and they rolled with some Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts, and they rolled no gi and they stalemated, and they were like, why would I want to learn this? These guys can't even finish me no gi. Do you understand? So then they didn't have a reason. They thought jiu-jitsu was bullshit.
Do you know the
You know what I
Hegan
mean?
Machado Mark Kerr story? Do you guys know that? I was interviewing Mark, and Mark was like, "Hey, Hegan, I want to learn some jiu-jitsu," and Hegan made him put a gi on, and he said he got destroyed, like tapped out 20 times, triangle armbar choke, because Hegan made him put the gi on.
Yeah, of course.
Hegan with a gi on.
Put a gi on. Wouldn't you think most people would do that? Most people would say, put a gi on. You want to do jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is with the gi.
But Marco was like, "I'm never doing that. Don't ever put that gi on me again."
Yeah,
I'm
he
not
tricked
doing-"
he tricked him with that.
He used his brain. He's smart. You know what I mean?
Eddie, I know we don't have much time with you, so I need to ask you this question, because if I don't ask you this question, a lot of people are gonna attack me. There are a lot of fans, Habib fans in the Middle East. Habib just fought in Abu Dhabi, as you guys know, and they say Tony Ferguson is next. You're good friends with Tony Ferguson. You train Tony Ferguson.
You know what? I don't know.
You don't know what?
I can't do that in that
That's serious. Even Siri. Even Siri.
Oh, bro.
Even
Wow.
Siri. Even Siri didn't know about it.
Eddie,
Did that come out?
Eddie, that was weird.
Yeah.
No,
but
Somebody
I'm,
was listening.
I don't know.
no, I'm not
I don't
asking
know.
if it's gonna happen. I'm asking you, what needs to happen to beat such a guy? Like
To
with-
beat Khabib?
Yeah, I mean the guy he kind of toyed with Dustin in the beginning. I saw him going for a choke in the first round, and then like his coach Javier Mendes told him to just leave it, and then he's like, it's kind of demeaning.
I never sit here and especially with that caliber fight, I don't make predictions. To say you're
You're a
gonna
Tony
win.
man, so
Yeah, but we are planning on beating him. That's the plan. And the difference is, can't give away too much though, but the difference is everybody is running from Khabib on the ground. So they spend the whole time trying to get up to the fence and try to get back up.
Conister. Yeah.
Tony's not going to do that. Tony's going to attack. So it's going to be a little different. He's going to attack with submissions, and he's going to attack with elbows. He's not going to try to get back up.
and that's what you
He'll
mentioned.
try to keep the fight standing and do some takedown defense and all that stuff. But do you remember the Ty Ruotolo yesterday?
Yeah.
What is the one thing about his style that stuck out the most? His ability to do what?
He went for the darts a lot of times.
Yes.
But they caught him 3 times.
How come you suppose he's the only one who was darsing? Like he put in like maybe 4 or 5.
Is it about a 16-year-old kid?
Why,
That one?
why do you
I thought
why
so.
do you suppose he was the only one doing that? If you had a guess.
Probably trained it or drilled it several times, maybe. 'Cause it's
Yes, but beyond that, he's always looking for it.
Okay.
Always looking for it. Most people, they go in and they're looking for something, but maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. When you're actually looking for darces all the time, man, it alters your game. If you're going with someone that's always looking for darces, standing on the ground in transition, darcers, you approach them a little bit differently, and it alters your game. Tony is that guy. That Tony will hit those things from every angle. While Khabib is trying to take him down, he's got to watch out for all that shit. Guillotines. Tony's going to throw everything at him. I don't know if it's going to work. It's too hard to tell. Khabib is really, really good. But we're planning on submitting him. That's the plan. Hopefully it happens, of course, But I'm not making any predictions. It's
We just hope it
you
happens.
you just can't know. You just don't know, man. Khabib is undefeated, smashing
Tony's
everybody.
a great fighter too.
But it's going to be a different fight, though. That I could promise you that it's going to be different. It's not going to be Tony trying to drag himself up a fence and Khabib just riding on him, and just like there ain't going to be none of that.
I have noticed one thing about that fight. Khabib normally reacts to someone who's being kind of harsh to him sometimes. He can fight back, but when Tony is like kind of aggressive on Twitter and Instagram, Khabib doesn't really respond to him, and I thought that was always interesting. He gives like Tony a pass there sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
going to be interesting. There's a
intriguing
lot of
fight.
respect there. with
Everyone's
those
waiting
two
for that.
guys,
I mean,
yeah.
even people in the Middle East
Sure.
are looking forward to that fight.
Yeah.
They don't want the Conor fight, believe it or not.
No,
Nobody
of course
wants
not.
the
Nobody
Conor
wants
fight
that
in the Middle
Conor
East,
fight,
even
no.
though they hate Conor because of what he did with, bringing in all the, extracurricular stuff into the
They
fight.
want
But
to see a real.
they want to
badass
see
fight,
they want to see Tony.
Everybody wants to see Tony
Yeah,
compete.
yeah.
I think at this point, my guess is it's about money. That's it.
Yeah.
That's like negotiations now.
And making the fight in Moscow. That's another one he mentioned.
Ever since, oh really? Is that
Yeah,
what he wants? He wants
said-
it in Moscow.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's
And
gonna be
everybody
interesting.
I filmed in my many years, Tony
he's like,
always
yeah.
made me very nervous. He had a lot of energy. Like I'm always like I film everyone in my career, but Tony, when I'm in the mat and the camera, I don't know. There's a certain energy that emanates like from him. Like don't fuck with me. And I can feel it when I film because the camera never lies. You can feel energy when I film someone. I can feel energy, and when I filmed Tony a few times doing your commercial, just like he made me nervous on the mat. I don't know. He just has this energy that is like
He's a
very
savage.
animalistic.
He's a real
He's an
savage.
animal.
Yeah.
And I could feel it. I didn't even want to make eye contact with
He's
him.
probably
too.
the only guy I enjoy. I never watched the UFC
Right.
opening workout,
Yeah.
but he's the only guy, the public workouts. He's the only guy that I enjoy watching the public workouts because he does some crazy stuff, you know,
Sure, yeah.
with the music and the.
Yeah.
It's
But Eddie said something. He is a proper savage.
Yes.
He's
for
a
real.
proper savage.
For real.
Energetic. He's not playing the savage game.
You
I'm
see
gonna
that picture
talk.
of all the guys, his like last 7
Yeah,
opponents,
all
and
their
they're
faces,
all
yeah.
shredded
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Even if when he got into it with Fabricio Verdum in that video, he was gonna fight him. That was like a real thing.
You got to kill Tony to beat him.
Yeah, you gotta kill
gotta
Tony,
him.
Last question. 10th Planet. A lot of schools, a lot of affiliations, but I want to focus on outside of North America. What's probably your most proud affiliation out there? Which country?
10 Planet Saudi Arabia.
No, that's another question I'm going to ask you. Why not the Middle East? Like, why is it not?
We got 10th Planet in Lebanon and
Oh, yeah?
Beirut.
Wow.
Oh,
We got-
yeah, actually, somebody.
You ever
told
been
me
to
that.
Beirut?
No, never.
I thought it was Beirut. There's a Beirut in America or Lebanon in America. I thought it was that
I have a
one.
brown belt at 10th Planet headquarters here in downtown. He's been with me since day one. His name is we call him DBZ, but his name is Abdul Aziz Al Shari. That's a kind of a common name, right?
Yeah.
And he's putting together a whole Arabic 10th Planet thing, the website and everything. He's doing it right now.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so I'm gonna send him out. I'm already connecting him with like the people that I know, like because people contact me, and they might be from Dubai or something. Hey, you guys ever gonna do jiu-jitsu out here? So DBZ, that's his nickname. DBZ is he's gonna be my representative out there and start spreading the 10th Planet love in the Middle East for sure. We're doing that right now.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Just ask that question. And
Yeah.
Where do you live? You live in Abu Dhabi?
yeah.
You live there?
Yeah.
I have one question for you. I filmed Gio's fight yesterday. I don't know if it was the one that he lost. Was that his second fight or the first fight? The one he lost yesterday?
He lost his first fight.
First fight. That was a whole new Gio. It was very aggressive. I filmed the last two ADCCs in Finland and Brazil, and I noticed he was very aggressive. Was he taking that data from the first two and trying to be more proactive, pro wrestler vibe? Was that what's going on there? I just noticed a different kind of aggression in him in that
During
fight.
the match?
Yeah.
He was hell bent on going after the guy's legs because the guy made his name in the gi.
Right.
So we thought the best strategy was to go after his legs, and the guy had really good leg lock defense. So it didn't work out.
I was surprised though because I felt he was kind of playing to the ADCC rules by being aggressive, trying to force takedowns, being on top.
He's been working on his wrestling a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. He realized that from the last couple of years how important the wrestling is, and generally, like John Thor Blank, he wrestled in high school.
Right.
Keith Krikorian, he wrestled in high school. Elvira, she wrestles all the time. She's been wrestling. Her wrestling's really good. So they all take their wrestling serious. Gio just over the last couple of years, he really started turning on wrestling.
Yeah.
But now he wants to even get deeper into wrestling. So, ADCC, man, especially in those OTs are basically a wrestling match. Whoever has the best wrestling in OT, they generally will win. Generally. So, you're going to, the 10th Planet guys you see coming up in the next couple of ADCCs are going to be my guys that grew up wrestling, because you got to have a wrestling background to end up on that podium.
I remember your wrestling influence as a blue belt in Jean Jacques Machado. I remember you was very wrestling. You used to have your ear.
Yeah, even when you when you got into ADCC, you had the earplugs. Yeah.
But you was very wrestling based.
I wrestled in high school a couple years.
Yeah. But you know, even in Tarzana though.
But yeah, I sucked. But I was way better than guys that had never wrestled ever before in their life.
Yeah.
So I was using my wrestling, you know, the twister is a wrestling move.
Exactly, yeah.
So I was using my wrestling to beat guys that didn't wrestle. But then every now and then I'd run into a wrestler that was like a legit wrestler that was better than me. I'm like, damn, this stuff's not going to work on this guy's way better at wrestling. So that's when I started developing my guard. I like, with the wrestlers, I got to, instead of trying to sweep them all the time, and I can't, I got to finish them off my back. So then the rubber guard started to develop.
I promise I have one more question for you. Maurice Smith, how much of an influence was he on you with his half guard with Conan Silvieri?
Not at all. Not at all. We both played lockdown,
Right.
but he learned the lockdown from TK.
Right.
And I don't know who he learned. I didn't make up the lockdown.
Rings, I think it was the Rings.
I remember the first guy Hickson fought in Japan. He was like a Japanese jiu-jitsu guy. He actually fought with pants.
Yeah. Kosen Jujo he was doing.
He had Hickson in the lockdown. And so I didn't invent it. I just
named it.
But was you analyzing it at the time, Eddie?
And I got obsessed with it.
Was you looking at Maurice Smith and Kosen Judo and what they were doing? Did it kind of fascinate you? When you was watching
No,
them?
I was like, oh, he does the lockdown too.
Oh, got it.
I didn't get it from him. I got it from Jean LaBelle, because I was putting people in the where I first learned it was when Jean LaBelle came to Jean Jacques Machado's, and as I was a white belt, and Jean LaBelle came down in a pink gi and taught a seminar.
I remember those days.
Remember, and taught a seminar.
I remember.
And I showed him, I told him, I go, listen, I'm making this wrestling move, the guillotine, because that's what the twisters call the wrestling. It's called the guillotine. But obviously in jiu-jitsu, the guillotine is a front headlock. But anyways, in wrestling, it's a guillotine. So I told him, I go, look what I'm doing. And I wasn't locking the leg down, because in wrestling, you don't lock the leg down. Right. You just put that deep grapevine in. And he said, why don't you try, doing this with your legs? And I'm like, oh, this is way better. Ooh, how come I didn't think of that? So then I just started doing that in half guard too. I'm like, ooh, we could do this in half guard too. But initially, it was Jean LaBelle who showed me. It's a judo thing.
Got it.
That's man.
I remember those days. He used to beat up some students in that seminar. Do you remember?
Yeah, he used to hurt people.
Yeah, I remember there was a guy.
But it was funny though.
Do you remember Alan? Do you remember Alan who was there?
Zaborowski.
Yeah, so basically he showed me a move. And I was trying to hide, and he picked me and Alan. And I tried to do the move that Jean was showing, and then Alan tried to be smart and not let me do the move. And I remember Jean was saying, well, if he does this, he grabs him by the hair. And I was just like, oh my God, I was just terrified, because he would like kind of crank it on you a little bit. You have to be careful of Jean. Jean's a bit nutty.
You guys watch combat jiu-jitsu at all?
Yes, I'm doing all the time.
I love that concept for sure. Yeah. I mean, I saw Wagner Rocha even going for a bit of palm strikes and stuff like that. The referee warned him several times. I thought it was cool.
Yeah. Combat jiu-jitsu was something that I was trying to start before EBI. And because of the strikes involved, you have to get the commission involved. And this was back in 2012. I did a couple combat jiu-jitsu matches in 2012. But the commission wouldn't let me do it outside of a cage. It had to be inside of a cage. It only because they weren't being dicks or anything. They just did. It was like a new sport, new concept. Yeah, they didn't. They were like, I don't know, outside of a cage, because in a cage, combat jiu-jitsu looks like pussy ass MMA, But on Abu Dhabi mats, on jiu-jitsu mats, in rash guards, and now the guys can imagine in Abu Dhabi if in the finals you can do palm strikes. Imagine how insane that would be. Yeah. Imagine how gangster would be, right? So coming from jiu-jitsu, pure jiu-jitsu, CJJ is gangster. You know what I mean? But coming from MMA, it's like, oh, this is easy. So it's right there in the middle. It's one giant step closer to reality. The problem with the combat jiu-jitsu in the beginning, like I said, they made me do it in a cage. They said, okay, you'll do three 3-minute rounds. I wanted 1 10-minute round, but they go, no, we got to have 3 3-minute rounds. First, it was 3 2-minute rounds. And I'm like, whoa, 2-minute rounds, whoa. Let me at least get 3. So we tried it. We tried doing a couple special combat jiu-jitsu matches in a local MMA show, and as like a special match. got mixed reviews. And I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna do sub only and not even mess with the commission.
Yeah,
So,
but why not do it outside of California? Is this everywhere?
Oh, you still have to get it sanctioned. The only way, you know.
If you've been kind of striking,
Yeah, yeah.
it's kind of considered.
So then I just decided, you know what, we're going to do EBI then. So then it became EBI, and after like 10 shows, I went back to the commission. I said, can I do it now? And at that point, most of the guys in the commission are like jiu-jitsu guys. They're like brown belts and black belts.
You got.
So that when I went back, the commission was a big fan of EBI, like all the guys in there. And I said, can I do combat jiu-jitsu now, like outside of a cage the way I wanted it, with palm strikes, no gloves? They were like, hell yeah. They were so down. So at that point, I'm like, oh, man. So let me start introducing combat jiu-jitsu through EBI, you know. But that was, combat jiu-jitsu was always the main plan. It was always plan A. Mm-hmm. EBI was plan B. So that's why now I'm going full steam with Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds now.
That's
Now
awesome.
it's like, I mean, it's basically EBI, 16-man tournaments, still EBI OT, still 10-minute regulation, has everything EBI has, everything, except Combat Jiu-Jitsu has a little turbocharger, and that's the palm strikes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, our next show is November 24th. It's going to be in Mexico, and
No need for a commission there either. So all right,
yeah,
maybe.
there's no commission there, but we got a promoter out there who's like, you know, we're saving a lot of money. You know, we're saving a lot of money by doing it in Mexico, and plus, there's going to be our biggest crowd so far was when we were in Mexico for EBI 10. The place was packed.
Wow,
they show up, but here in LA, because of all the rivalries between me and all the schools, it's like they boycott it. And we have small, you know, we don't have big, gigantic. They should be sold out, but there's, you know, and I get it. I get why the traditional schools are kind of shying away from EBI and kind of like boycotted it for real. Like for real boycotted. It was like a silent boycott because it was all, you know, and I understood because they were like, there's no guard passing, there's no mounting, everyone's just sitting back for footlocks, it's all just like a footlock sport and all that. And I get that, and I totally understand that. That's why I feel super confident that combat jiu-jitsu is the answer for everybody, because when you add strikes, now the mount all of a sudden has the power back. You know, because the mount in MMA is huge. Start raining elbows and punches.
Everything, Eddie,
yeah,
has power.
Yeah, but in sub only, the mount isn't that powerful. You know what I mean? Because guys just turtle up, and it's like, fuck it, let me just jump on their legs. You know, so it does become like some kind of leg lock battle. And if the mount isn't important, then guard passing isn't as important either. But now with the strikes, the mount's more important, which means side control's more important, which means the guard passing is very important. So the traditional jiu-jitsu practitioners should embrace combat jiu-jitsu. It's the way Brazilians used to train. Jean Jacques Machado was on Joe Rogan's podcast not too long ago talking about combat jiu-jitsu and how Brazilians used to train, like after their training, they take off their gi and they start doing jiu-jitsu with palm strikes. It's called taparia. You know, so I didn't make it up. This is like how Brazilians train. So I feel that combat jiu-jitsu is the perfect jiu-jitsu style for everybody. You know what I mean? Because it's a giant step towards realism. You know what I mean? It's not a giant step away from realism by adding the palm strikes. We're getting closer to realism. So I didn't add the palm strikes because I felt EBI needed knockouts. It wasn't because of that. It's because MMA Jiu-Jitsu is still very theoretical. Everyone's got their theories on what works and what doesn't work in MMA Jiu-Jitsu. But we don't really see that much MMA Jiu-Jitsu anymore. Most fights are kickboxing battles, and it's so hard to take people down. So we don't really have the data on. It's still very theoretical. People will say all this stuff. When I play guard in MMA, and these are MMA fighters, I talk to them all the time. They said they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and I would do this and I would do that. But then when it actually happens, they didn't do any of that. You didn't do any of this stuff you were telling me about before your match. So it's all theoretical, you know, and then there's stand-ups, they stand them up. So we're not getting that much data, right? So combat jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu data for MMA. You know, it's a niche audience. It's for people. We don't ever get to see MMA jiu-jitsu, only in the UFC, and that rarely happens. They discourage it. They stand people up from side control. In combat jiu-jitsu, we put them, instead of stand-ups, we have get-downs. So we only allow 1 minute on the feet wrestling. 1 minute. After a minute, if there's no takedown, flip a coin. We go top bottom, just like wrestling, where they bring wrestlers top bottom. We do the same thing. We put them on the ground. We get it. Wrestling's the best. Judo's the best. Muay Thai's the best. Kickboxing's the best. Boxing. We already got that. We see that. We have plenty of that in the UFC. That's what the UFC's become. 80% of the UFC is stand-up fighting. We see it. We get it. We need more data on the ground with what really works on the ground. Because in sub-only, everyone's like, oh, you can't do leg locks like that because you're in MMA, you're going to get knocked out. It's so unrealistic. Then I do combat jiu-jitsu. It's more realistic. What now? What is it about? You know what I mean? It's more realistic.
I love that idea, especially for our region, because it is the difference between, because jiu-jitsu is in our school systems now, and thousands of people are training. It's in the police force, it's in the military. Everyone trains jiu-jitsu now. So it's a good filter, I would say, or a transition for people who want to see if they want to do MMA. Not even like doing MMA, just wanting to do MMA.
Yeah.
Because if they don't like being hit in the face with a palm or a slap, then it's not for them, right?
Yeah.
So this is perfect for us. I know that for sure.
And the best jiu-jitsu players out there, most of them don't even have a thought or any interest in doing MMA. So we're never going to get to see the best jiu-jitsu players in realistic
scenario. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because if you are amazing at jiu-jitsu, but your striking sucks or your wrestling sucks, we'll never get to see it in the UFC. We'll never get to see all that talent in a real situation. But in combat jiu-jitsu, you can see that because, like you said, it's for people that are training for a career in MMA, but it's also for people that have already done MMA and now they're done with it and they would just want to stick with jiu-jitsu with strikes. They can come down from that too. And it's for jiu-jitsu players that have no interest at all in ever doing MMA ever. Like Ben Eddie, he's one of my best combat jiu-jitsu competitors. He's never had any interest in doing MMA, but he loves combat jiu-jitsu because he's a big rubber guard player, and nothing gets altered in his game. When you play rubber guard, whether they're striking or not, it's the exact same hold, moves, sequences. Everything is exactly the same. Nothing changes. So Ben Eddie is perfect for that. He's a combat jiu-jitsu star.
Eddie, what happened to Gordon Ryan versus Fabricio Verdum? I think I saw that advertised.
That was going to happen, but then we had people financing that. That cost a lot of money, and then that sponsor kind of is not around anymore. So
who wins that fight, Gordon Ryan versus Fabricio in combat jiu-jitsu?
That's a good question.
That's like a high-level elite.
That's why he
How about Buchecha and Gordon Ryan combat jiu-jitsu?
Oh man,
right? I want combat jiu-jitsu to be the thing people say when they get beat in the point systems. Let's do combat jiu-jitsu now. How about in combat jiu-jitsu?
Because that's some data.
That's like combat jiu-jitsu is the pro level of jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? There's points, gi, no gi points, judges, half sub only, half whatever, and then boom, and then combat.
And then MMA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it.
I was so looking forward to that fight. It could have been
maybe it'll happen,
really
but like I said, the financing, we had a sponsor that was paying for that because that's an expensive fight. I don't have a budget like that, So, so it's hard to put. So I just stick with 16-man tournaments. We have, just like Abu Dhabi, there's no negotiations. A big part of the EBI format and the combat jiu-jitsu format is what ADCC was doing. They have 16-man tournaments. It's perfect because no matter who you put in a 16-man tournament, you can put anybody. It really doesn't matter. By the end, by that final, you are going to know those finalists so well, you're going to be into it. A 16-man tournament is an automatic documentary. Automatic. Because think about UFC too. That was the only UFC that there was a 16-man tournament. All the other early ones were 8-man tournaments, which was still awesome because you still see the finalists in their third fight. But in a 16-man tournament, you have 4 fights for the finalists. You know what I mean? You know them very well. Look at UFC 2. Nobody knew anybody. There were like random shitty karate guys, shitty kung fu guys, random like dude who claims sumo. Like, did he really do sumo, or is he just saying that? Like, no one even knew who Royler Gracie was. Nobody knew any of those guys. But that show had the biggest impact of all combat shows ever in the history of the world. That one physically rocked the world.
ADCC.
And it blew the fuck up. And that was a 16-man tournament. Nobody knew any of those guys. But by the end, because in the beginning, I hated Royler Gracie right there. The first round and the second round, I was doing karate at the time. I'm like, fuck this dude. Fuck this dude. But then on the other side of the bracket, you had Patrick Smith coming up. And he was really cocky and talked a lot of shit. I didn't like him either. I'm like, I don't like Royce. I don't like Patrick Smith. But by the time they got to the finals, I was like, I fucking love Royce. I got to do this shit. I got to do some jiu-jitsu. I just needed to figure out, because I wrestled, I figured, is this primitive wrestling? Is this like prehistoric wrestling? Or is it super advanced? Or is it super advanced wrestling? I didn't know. I'm like, how is this shit going to work against a real wrestler? That's what I was thinking. But then by the end, I'm like, he beats Patrick Smith. I'm like, I am sold. I went out and looked for jiu-jitsu right away.
Same as.
It was great. It was great picking your mind on a lot of things.
Thank you.
Love what you're doing, and I'm a big fan. And hopefully we see your system,
Who knows,
aside from the YouTube, coming to the Middle East at a more.
Maybe we'll do combat jiu-jitsu worlds in the Middle East.
You
know
can.
what I mean?
No commissions. So.
Are you sure? You sure?
I mean,
we could do it.
I mean, we have MMA shows in a cage, but we can have I'm sure we can have the original combat jiu-jitsu in.
We could do it anywhere. With the guy who produces it. I mean, we're going to Mexico. This second time in Mexico. We could take the show anywhere. So who knows? Maybe we'll do it.
I love it for us because I look into my side of things for our region. It's the best thing for somebody to check if this guy is ready to be.
Do people show up to watch tournaments?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They do?
I've been to recently to a couple.
He's been to the World.
They have amazing.
What do you think? If we did
everything.
combat jiu-jitsu worlds in Abu Dhabi, you think people show up?
So,
If you mixed up some names with some local
talent.
Oh,
for sure. We do a qualifier like a month before an Abu Dhabi qualifier to get a spot. You know what I mean?
We'll do combat jiu-jitsu Samoa too, so don't forget that.
What was that?
We'll do a combat jiu-jitsu in Samoan Islands.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Oh, my God. Use all local fighters.
There we go. Fiji Islands, Samoa, Pacific Islanders. Big boys there, man.
Hell yeah.
One bitch slap from one of them big boys. Sayonara.
I'm sure. Oh, there's a picture of us in, was this 2000... Back in the old days, was it 2007 or 8 maybe?
Rockstar, baby.
2008.
Better hair than me.
Maybe not anymore, but from my side. But yeah, good times.
Thank you very much, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I know you're very busy with your school, your teaching, and we just came back from a busy weekend as well. We're tired. I'm sure you're extra tired. I'm flying back tomorrow, so thanks for doing this, and I hope to see you soon, whether it's in Abu Dhabi or back in LA again.
For sure. We'll do it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We're out.